once again, obviously the Constitution gives us some direction on that, but I think what the questioner is asking is something that goes much deeper than that. And something I also think, just reading, I wish I had been here yesterday to hear Andy Card. I've heard him in the past, but one of the things that I know he talked about was character and leadership. And I deeply believe, obviously those people who aspire to the presidency are naturally ambitious. They have a vision, typically, for the things that they want to accomplish. But I think that the spec for the job requires an understanding that governing in the executive branch, as with Congress and policy making, is both an art and a science. It requires, yes, a deep understanding of the world at large and a range of issues, but also understanding the functioning of government and respecting that, respect for the office, both its limitations and its powers, and also a deep understanding of the ability to rally around you and to build around you a team of experts. I mean, Doris Kearns Goodwin writes about team of rivals. Others have talked about the cabinet and the executive branch in terms of those of us who serve as staff and assistants to the president. But bringing in those and being able to listen deeply to those who have expertise, and then because of the wisdom, the judgment, because you understand the technical functions of government, that the science of governing, being able to make wise and thoughtful decisions, and to do so understanding that you will do those in moments often of extreme peril, often when you feel like you don't have enough time to make decisions in the way that you would want to, but because of the demands placed upon you by the world and by the country, you have to do so. So I think those are critical functions. I would also say that it is important, and I was just in London about a week ago. I was in Italy for work a few weeks before that. The president walks on the global stage, and America has always prided itself in being a beacon for the rest of the world. The rest of the world has looked toward the United States for leadership in times past. If we want to retain that, we have to select a president who can engage with other world leaders and do so in a way that keeps in mind and represents who we are as Americans and the respect that we hope to garner for others, by also showing respect for, while advocating strongly for, the United States of America. So I think all of those things are essential to the role. One of the things, as I answer the question, that I realized when I got to the White House, and even having worked in Congress and working for Senator Kennedy, which I deeply treasure those moments, and he cared deeply for the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, but really in many ways was a national senator, and we thought nationally about the work that we were doing. But what I noticed when I got to the White House is that you had to think about so many facets of so many questions to be responsive in your job. And I lead with that because there are a host of issues, of complicated and intertwined issues that the president will need to think about. I think obviously the issues of mobility, inequality, economic inequality, and that set of challenges that have Americans feeling deeply, many Americans feeling deeply insecure, must be front and center for the next president. And that ties also to issues of globalization and how the United States fits inside the global economy. So I think that is a significant portfolio that the president will need to focus on. We will also, I walked out and I was talking about the weather. In a broader sense, issues of climate and the world that we are going to leave for our children also a set of significant issues. Not only the macro policy and what we're thinking about 10, 20, 30 years down the road, but what decisions that we're making today that will impact people in their day-to-day lives. I'm trying to remember a conversation. It was a conversation I was just having last night at dinner, and I was talking to people who are living in Florida, and they were talking about the fact that literally, even when the sun shines, there are times when the roads start to flood. I mean, these are issues that are starting to impact us on a daily basis, and we have to be deeply concerned about them. I also believe very, very firmly that one of the significant issues that sits in our culture and permeates our lives in many, many ways, the shifting demographics of the American population. And I raise that because it not only impacts issues like mobility and equality, it affects our education system and so many other issues, but I think that it's important because it goes deeply to our culture and the health of the body politic, and how and if we will be able to harness all of the talent that exists in the American population in a way that truly allows us to meet our democratic aspirations and, as a country, to lead. If, in fact, we can be a multi-ethnic, multi-racial democracy in the 21st century. So I could go on, but those are some of the issues that I believe are critically important. Well, one of the things that I think is critical if we are to, there is no stuffing the genie back in this bottle. And one of the things that we are doing when I go back home to my day job is to focus on the role of technology in a democracy and in our daily lives, not only the challenges, but the opportunities. When it comes to the media and the fact that so much of the media landscape has changed, I mean, we've seen go from cable to the rise of social media, some of the issues that I mentioned in my remarks. So we've also seen the decline and the drying up of local media. This, I believe, is one of the critical issues that's facing our democracy. Think about the where and how you get your news. I have talked to people who are civically engaged, care deeply about their communities, and they'll say, in fact, one of the persons I spoke with is a professor of politics, and she said, I didn't even know that there had been a mayor elected in the town next to mine because there is no newspaper. I didn't know about this until I read about it on Facebook. We should not be reliant on Facebook for our news. So I think it's absolutely important that we, and this work is underway, that we start to focus on what the new models are for local journalism. The MacArthur Foundation has taken a lead on this with others and created a program called Press Forward, and they are funding and supporting local Press Forward chapters in states around the country. We're working on this in Virginia, to support resources that will flow into smart models, resilient models for local journalism that can be sustainable in the 21st century. If we don't have access to good information, how can we be educated citizens to make smart choices for our democracy? So I think strengthening local journalism is critical. My guess is that every woman in this room believes that that might change things. No. I was going to say in all seriousness, I think anytime you look at the picture of all 46 presidents and you think, really, not one woman? It raises significant questions. But I do think the person very well could be known to us. right now. I'm not going to name names, but I think that person could be known to us, whether it's someone sitting or who has been in a cabinet or an executive of a state. I think there are talented women who are doing important work, who have been fearless and fierce leaders, who meet the spec that I was talking about a few minutes ago, and I think that moment will be upon us in the next few years, and I'm excited about it. When I look at the other countries around the world and I see women at the helm of those countries, I ask myself, and I know little girls all the time are asking themselves, why not us? So I do think that moment is coming. I do want to just add one other thing to a question. I won't go on. I know it's 11:59. In terms of the important questions, technology. I think the president will have to deal, and the executive branch working with Congress will have to deal with issues of technology and AI and what this means for our country in so many different ways, in terms of commerce, in terms of journalism and media, the way that we get our information, the displacement of people and sectors and industries. It will have a profound effect, and I know some of the work that we're doing at UVA and our engagement with congressional staff, this is something they're thinking about and trying to get their arms around, and I think that will be a critical issue for us going forward as well.
Chautauqua, please join me in thanking Melody.
Thank you.